och nu ska vi över till Bryssel och höra mer om EUs arbete på det här området, lite övergripande. And we're going to switch to English, and we're going to hear about the new EU Circular Economy and Action Plan. And we have the pleasure to invite Paola Migliorini, who's Deputy Head of Unit, European Commission, DG Environment, Circular Economy and Green Growth, Sustainable Production, Products and Consumption. Please, Paola.
I would like to start by thanking the Swedish Protection Agency for inviting the Commission to open or to contribute to this textile dialogue. You will see from what I will indicate in my presentation that we have identified the textile as one of the key areas where we wish to work and to concentrate our efforts in order to transition the sector to a circular economy. But why are we doing so? And then, in fact, instead of focusing immediately on the measures for textile, I wanted to zoom out a little bit and then present a little bit the context that goes around the strategy and the measures that we are planning for the textile sector. So you have heard of the Circular Economy Action Plan number 2 that was adopted in March this year. But again, where is this coming from? Sometime in December of 2019, we have adopted, with the new Commission coming into office, we have adopted the European Green Deal, so this strategy for sustainable development. And one of these of the initiatives is precisely the Circular Economy Action Plan that aims to mobilize industry and then transform it into a clean and circular system. Why we were doing so, and we have decided to go like that because, as you know, we are consuming much more resources, at least 3 times the resources that are needed. And then it has been also calculated that biodiversity loss, 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress comes actually from the activity of extractions of resources. We will, it has been projected that by 2050, we will increase by 70% our waste generation. So clearly, the model of production and consumption that we are in now is not sustainable. So we are in this process in Brussels to devise all these policies, and then what comes in? COVID. It is, of course, one of the crises that we are faced with, but at the same time, I think we wanted to see the opportunity that this crisis brings. We always say that we need to change the system that we are in, the system of production and consumption. We were forced to modify it. So the idea is that with the recovery plan that the Commission proposed, we want to take the if I can say so, the experience that we have had in the past months where we have been forced to live and consume differently and trying to extrapolate it and try to make it with the necessary adaptation, of course, a model that is more sustainable. So from one side, we had all the structure and all the policies for sustainable development, and at the same time, we are into practice needed to change. So with the action plan that we have adopted, we have identified some 35 actions along the entire life cycle of products, because we want to make sustainable products the norm, also in the textile sector. We want to empower consumers and public buyers, so using the power of public authorities to really engage in a different way of consumption. We have identified some key product value chains, and textile is one of those, together with plastics, packaging, batteries, construction and buildings, electronic and ICT, and others, foods, for example. We are going to go a step further, or one step ahead in the waste management. In fact, we want to focus on waste prevention, so generate less waste. And then we have put forward a series of actions for, we say, for people, regions, and cities. So you see the movement from the European level down, closer to where citizens are, closer where the actual circular economy takes place. a local level with the municipalities, and then with businesses, supports for SMEs, for example, or for researcher in innovation, and at the same time really close to people working with retailers, for example, in order to make consumption more easier to be a sustainable consumer somehow, with some initiatives that we will put forward, and I will give you a few details in a moment. And then also with this action plan, we really wanted to push the global efforts to transition to a circular economy, mainly focusing on plastics, so a few activities internationally. But I think that given the international look of the textile value chain, it is clear that with the measures that we will come forward for textiles, we also have identified this sector as one where we want to lead internationally to transition to more sustainable modes of production and consumption. So, of the value chains, as I said, there are several here. I have singled out the measures that we are planning for textile. Let me give you just a few details before of what we mean by saying that we want to make sustainable products the norm. We are going to develop a sustainable product policy framework and legislative initiatives that will comprise some horizontal principles, overarching principles for the production of products and services. This will be done by extending the scope of the Eco-Design Directive. Eco-Design Directive, which is now currently focused on energy-related product in the use phase. We want to extend that to all products, of course, where appropriate. So we will, as I said, develop these overarching principles together also with the stakeholders, with the usual consultations and then engagement with the different parties in order to ensure that we are covering all the possible issues. It's not something that we start only now, as those who follows the activity in Brussels knows that already in 2018 we came up with a staff working document, so another document from the Commission, which was the result of extensive consultation with stakeholders on specific items that were needed, specific measures for making sustainable products. So, as I said, legislative proposal with overarching principles. Which kind of principles? Some kind of principles that would might be looking like, and I'm simplifying, like a product hierarchy, a series of principles that would say that first we need to reuse, for example, or first we need to design in a sustainable way using, for example, recycled content. We need to reuse the products. We need then to remanufacture them, and then after looking into recycling. So a series of steps that would guide the production and the consumption of products. At the same time, we will, where appropriate, follow the example of the single-use plastic directive and then addressing single-use items. So reducing the use or basically banning some single-use items where those are not necessary. One important novelty of the product initiative will be what we call it the digital passport. I think this is something that might be of great interest to some of you. Also, I know that sensibility in Sweden to these issues, traceability. We want to be able to trace the materials, hazardous substances and not hazardous substances that are in a product in order to understand exactly how we can recycle them, how we can reuse them, how we can dismantle a product. So to do so, we will probably develop what is called a product passport. We will need, of course, to set up some kind of a database, a methodology to understand how to communicate this information. More important also, which information to make available to which actor at which step of the value chain, because there are, of course, some issues of proprietary rights, some issues of privacy. So it's really important that we address all these aspects. We're doing this with other services, of course, in Brussels, other services in the Commission. But this, I think, is one of the novelty. We will also adopt more specific and targeted measures, but in the sectoral legislations. So it's a combination of horizontal and then thematic. And for this, we are likely to come up with a strategy for textiles by the end of 2021. Also, as I said, the measures that I was mentioning about design, eco-design, also would be for 2021. So the strategy for textile will be a series of measures, starting from what we say the new sustainable product framework that I was just explaining you, and including eco-design measures for textile. So these could be some essential requirements for recycled content in some type of garments, for example, or some type of furniture. We will also issue guidance documents to support the mandatory separate collection provision that will come in 2025 for textile waste, separate collection mandatory as of 2025, and we will issue guidance document in order to support this. We also are going to use Horizon 2020, well, Horizon Europe, to support SMEs and then innovators for improving reuse and recycle of textiles, developing new materials, and at the same time providing incentives also to support the create new circular business models. We know that in the textile business there are already some experiments of the sorts in leasing clothes, for example. In fact, in some cases these has been going on for quite a long time, but at the same time we are this to the sector, and again, where appropriate and when it makes business sense. So one other element that I wanted to really indicate that I think it's very important, and I close with that, and then let some time for question and answer from the audience, is measures that will support consumption and then the share of the information. We are also proposing, so what we call it, green claim initiative. So also in 2021, very likely in Q2 2021, we're going to adopt legislative proposals that will make mandatory the use of the product and organization environmental footprint methods for every company that has a green claim to make, so to substantiate these green claims. And in the textile sector, you know that we have launched the development of category rules for apparel. So we are going to combine the exercise of the pilots of the PEF and the methodology, and then the current development of category rules with these legislative proposals that will ensure that from the consumption, from the consumer side, consumers really have access to information that is trustworthy and then replicable, and then will be able to understand and to make the appropriate choice when purchasing textile or garments that have a reduced impact on environment, for example. So these are some of the measures, more specifically to textile, but again, in the broader context of measures to go sustainable in the way that we want to develop. I would stop here and then let the floor give back to the moderator, and then again, I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much, Paola.